Everyone is here for the same reason, and that is you came here to generate breakthrough results in your life. How do you show up every day? That's leadership. How do you deal with adversity? That's leadership. How many people in this room have at least something you want to get better at? When you follow through, you are most of all teaching yourself that you will not quit. I want this to be a session that you never forget.
Welcome, Brian. Thank you so much for joining us today. How are you?
Awesome, Rita. I get to spend some time with you. What could be better than that?
That's lovely. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to serve our audience. And, you know, your journey as a speaker has touched countless lives. I mean, you're a top 10 interactive speaker for North America. You've been a bestseller of 16 books. You've done so many cool things like working with Lockheed Martin, Starbucks. You've been on all the cool outlets. And my favorite, worked with Disney Institute as a speaker, right? So of all those things, right? I want to kind of bring it back and get real today on a personal level. You know, what from all that experience that you've had, what's been a deeply personal moment or story where you witnessed how profound that impact has been of your work to an individual or a team that you've been able to have the chance to work with or speak to?
Well, that's a wonderful question. I've never been asked. I love it. And two come to mind, and it's really a perfect combination because one is about an individual, one is about a team, and those are connected. I just received not that long ago an email from somebody I spoke to 14 years ago. I spoke for a group up in Canada 14 years ago, and this was a young man who less than a year before coming to that event had his spine severed. He was in a horrible accident and he was paraplegic. And I'm known as America's Breakthrough Speaker, as you know, because and you saw it a little bit on the video, I've had close to 1 million people break through 1-inch thick boards karate style. It's the greatest individual and team breakthrough experience you'll ever have. And it's a metaphor of breaking through those fears and those obstacles, those habits, those doubts that hold us back, the breakdown part that you intimated about in the introduction. And that day, I'm always guided to choose who I will have break the first board. Everybody breaks a board. And that day I chose this young man. And at that time, he had not fully moved his right hand. He was right-handed. His left hand didn't move at all. But something in me said, this man wants to break through so much. And it's more than wanting to just break through. It was a business event, the breakthrough in his career, but much more. He wanted to break through into the vision of somehow walking again. Well, with people surrounding him and tears flowing and cheering and just incredible enthusiasm and energy, I watched this young man who didn't know he could even move his hand, open his fingers, turn his hand, and drive through the board. And everybody just swallowed him in an embrace. And I'll never forget that moment. But 14 years later, I got an email from him. And it was one of the most moving. I'm getting the tingles. I'm getting those Walt Disney tingles on myself right now, talking about how that moment had served him over the next 14 years to where now he is a professional speaker, that he wanted to take that moment to grow in his life. And what really struck me was 14 years. And that my goal as a speaker is to help people recognize that they're the heroes. And so that's one. The other one will be shorter. I did a program many years ago for 25 students in Texas. And this was a program where these students had failed the exam you must pass in the state of Texas to graduate high school 4 times. You're given 5 chances. Well, we had them for 2 days and did all kinds of interaction. And I got an email from one of the participants who said that all of their 25 brought their wooden boards, their broken boards, to the test, and 21 of 25 passed after having failed. All 25 failed 4 times before, and it's because they believed in themselves and because they found a purpose. So those two are really neat. Now, I really, people say you're a motivational speaker. I'm a motivated speaker. Real motivation must become internal. And that's what happened with both that team and that individual. They took the spark. They took the pixie dust and they made magic.
That's so profound because, like, oftentimes people will come up to me and be like, "Oh, why do you have a Disney business podcast? What does that even mean, like, to have that?" Well, the work that you've done is it's people. It's so much of business is ourself. It's how we show up, what we go through, and those boards that you bring up, they're honestly, in my opinion, metaphors for the walls that we put up for ourselves in life and in business. I mean, I can't even imagine how amazing it was to have that experience, from your perspective, of someone who said that they had no functionality in that hand, and all of a sudden they're just breaking through. But just as the physical side of that is of like breaking through physically, like I really feel like there's also a lot of emotional breakthroughs that you experiencing those moments have kind of maybe given you as well. So I wanna rewind a little bit and just say, like, when was the moment that you decided this is what you're doing? What was your breakthrough moment?
Oh, that's a great one. Well, I've had three careers. I went my first career. I went to Stanford University. We won't mention any years. It's 3 years after they invented the wheel, so it was long, long ago. Um, and my first career, I was a United States swimming coach. So I was working with athletes to rise to their potential. Then I went back to school, got my MBA, ended up going into business, ended up becoming a vice president of two pretty large corporations. And now for 34 years, I've been doing this work I love as a speaker and an author. But the moment that was really the breakthrough moment for me was as simple as the change in one word. I had grown up with a dad, like a lot of dads of people my age, where he had a real hard time ever expressing emotion. He had other than a little bit of anger here and there. He could never say, "I love you, son." He could never say, "I'm proud of you, son." And so I kind of grew up with this almost unconscious drive that maybe if I got great at something, I'd be good enough. Maybe then he'd say, "I'm proud of you." And what that turned into was a, just a terrible hunger for approval. And the only way I could feel that I was good enough was to feel that I was the best. I had to be the best at whatever I did. And Rita, I was not fun to play with in those days. If you want to play a game with me, I had to beat you because my whole being rested on being the best. Well, one day, this is the last year of my at Stanford, my senior year in Stanford. I was really down. I was really feeling like I wasn't good enough. And it hit me that I had lived my whole life comparing myself to other people, trying to be the best. And in one moment, I realized that what I'm going to do is shift from this incomprehensible hunger to be the best to simply going after life to be my best. From thee to my transformed my whole direction in life. Because no longer was I comparing myself to know who I was. No longer was it about trying to beat other people. It was simply reaching down and being the best that I could be. And nobody else can know that except yourself inside. But that redirected the trajectory of my life. And I think that's what has really guided all the joy I've had. These three careers have been awesome, but it was one word shift. Let go of comparison. Comparison is when you compare yourself to others, you're either going to have an overblown ego or be crushed. All right. When you really focus on being your best, you realize that all I can control is my controllables. And that's what I'm going to zero in on. And isn't it interesting? When we're focusing on the things we do control, we feel joyful, we feel momentum, we feel progress. When we try to control other people or control the approval, that's when we feel that we're just never good enough.
Well, we're only like 13 minutes in, and I've had my own little breakthrough moment with that. Let me just throw up the little board over here. Like, that's how I feel about it. Like, come on, be my best. Well, here's why this is so relevant for anyone who's listening, especially with social media. How much of us for me, even I spend my daily life on LinkedIn, right? That's where I need to push out content, create content, get new business. But what happens when we spend all that time? We start to compare. It's inevitable. You start to look at somebody else. Oh, I achieved this post, or hey, I just went and did this speaking event and it was in Aruba and they flew me out on a jet and I'm amazing. Don't you love this post? And whatever, right? Like there's so many external things happening that try to tell you how to be, how to act, what you're doing wrong, maybe intentionally or unintentionally. So, focusing on what you can control and being your best, that is such an important mindset shift because it does kind of help you become a better leader too, because you're shifting to more of this concept of servant leadership that I've been really trying to look into lately. Have you heard of this, and what are your thoughts on this type of leadership?
Absolutely. And I call this kind of leadership, servant leadership, breakthrough leadership. And breakthrough leadership starts with that focus on service, that how can I help people grow? And it requires humility. I keep on my desk a little rock that has the word humble, because humility to me is a key to servant leadership. And here's what I mean. Too many people have, especially in the last few years, have come to the, I think, actually backwards conclusion that somehow being humble is weak. That somehow being humble is not strong, that it's kind of wishy-washy. Not true. You can be incredibly humble. That, in other words, if you're humble, you can't be confident. Not true. You can be incredibly confident and incredibly humble. Because being humble doesn't mean you think less of yourself. It means you think of yourself less. Right? And only those who are humble are lifelong learners. Why? Because only those who are humble are always seeking to get better. They always believe they can improve. And therefore, when you come from that place, you really are looking to how you can help people grow, because you don't feel threatened by them. You honor them. You are delighted with them. You're easy to impress and hard to offend. So servant leadership, all right, starts with three. It's really those three controllables that I call breakthrough leadership, that will lead to breakthrough results in your life. The first, and how perfect on your show, because you think of Disney, you think of vision. All breakthroughs start with vision. It's shaping your future. It's like, how did we ever find anywhere before we had GPS? What is a GPS? It's a vision. It's a destination finder. We need to do that with our lives. We need to focus on what we want to create, because what you focus on is what you create. The second of those breakthrough controllables is to energize and engage your team. When it comes to human performance, when it comes to any kind of building a team, so much, and to being a great parent, to having a great life, so much of it is energy. And yet so many people think that their energy is like the weather. It's like, man, I hope the snow stops. I hope the sun comes out today. Hope I have enough energy to make it through this week. But your energy is a choice. And that is where it becomes a controllable, by changing the way you move. I mean, you have, Rita, remarkable energy. And it's because your face is like alive with energy. I mean, it's hard for you to keep your feet still when you're on this
Thanks.
show, because
That's true.
when you get an idea, I can see every idea that pops in your head that go, oh, when I said being humbled doesn't mean you think less of yourself. It means you think of yourself less. Boom, I saw the energy come out of you and go, that's important. So how do you energize and engage your team? Well, it starts by, before you can energize and engage anyone else, who must you energize and engage? Yourself. It starts on the inside, works through the outside. And the difference in performance between groups that really rise to their potential, so much of it is just their higher energy, because there's all the talent there. There's all the tools and resources. It's, do we have that higher level of energy? And the third of the breakthrough controllables is to build people, build teams, and build relationships. That's what servant leadership is. And the most important component of that is to be fully present. Because when you're with people and you're fully present, they know it. And you can't fake being present. You know when somebody's drifted off to another county. All right. But when you're fully present, what do you say to people through that presence? Well, beyond words, you say to them that they're important. You say to them that they matter, that they count. And when people feel important, they start to rise to their potential. And when people feel unimportant, they give up. They fall away. They act out. they leave. And so as a breakthrough servant leader, the most important component is to start by being fully present. And that means when you're with people, 100% of your mind, body, and spirit is with them where they are now, because that will help them know that they matter. And when people feel important, they're going to really rise to their potential.
I am so happy you said that because it's so true. Like, doesn't matter what you do in business, if you don't make that individual that you're working with, whether it's a client or a team member, feel like they matter, then everything else is just smoke and mirrors. It's all just, a show, right? And people can see through that. And I think it's, to flip it, if you're not doing well in your business and in some ways, maybe financially or whatever, and you're still trying to push through, if you can at least look at in the mirror and say, well, hey, I'm helping people, and hey, I'm showing up and I'm making people feel like they matter, eventually it is going to pay off. If you just have to keep showing up, in my opinion. We actually have
You
a
do.
question from a viewer. I would like to put it up on the screen for you. So
Sure.
we have someone who says, I've always compared myself with others. I'm not getting the salary yet that I'm making with more than one job experience. It's making Eamon anxious and feeling bad about themselves. And she's just trying to figure out, like, why is this happening when they're working so hard and they're not getting the positive output? Like, things are just feeling like they're not happening, for their way. It's feeling like they're a little frustrated right now. So Amen. I hope you're still listening. Brian, how would you coach and what do you have to say to help Amen out with this situation of feeling behind and not being able to break through?
Well, first of all, Eamon, bless you for reaching out and sharing that, because what you're saying is a lot of people feel. And that is, we are born with that hunger for approval. And it is natural when we're children. We want our parents to think that we're great. And then we want as we get older, it's our peers. But all I can say is, once you let go of a definition of success that is only measured by weighing yourself against other people, then you can start to pour yourself in with full energy in the direction you want to go. Let me give you a personal example. When I first started speaking, I was like a lot of speakers in that we wanted to get the applause. We wanted to get the plaudits. We wanted to, have our fees go up. And one day I was, and at that time, look at you, at that time, I rushed after a seminar over to read the evaluations. And because my seminars are really fun, people are like, wonderful, da, da, da. And there'd always be one that would say, pretty good. And the pretty good one was like a sword, Mulan sword through my heart. That's the only one I paid attention to. And one day, as I was sitting there reading these evaluations, I went, wait a minute, is this why I'm doing what I'm doing? So, Eamon, you want to ask yourself, why do you do what you do? You've chosen a great field to help people. And it hit me that I'm not doing this for evaluations. I'm doing this because I love the way I feel when I'm in the process of doing what I'm doing. I love the way I feel when I'm speaking, that I'm coming from deep down inside and doing what I was put on earth to do. And from that moment on, I never asked and even never looked at an evaluation, because people would come up to me and tell me that with their thoughts. I'd get that anyways. But the rest of it was just about ego. So when you let go of comparison, you move from ego to we go. All right. And you can begin to really, really enjoy what you do. The more you enjoy what you do, the more comparison doesn't matter, and the better you're going to get at it. And that higher level will start to come, because you're not pushing in order to get it. You're giving and growing in what you do to get better at it. So focus on what you put in, and great things will come out. I don't know whether you can see it, but behind me is a pyramid, and it's called the Pyramid of Success. And it was the basis of my first book called Beyond Success. And the man who created that Pyramid of Success was named John Wooden. He was the greatest men's college basketball coach of all time. In 27 years at UCLA, the greatest of them all never said the words winning or losing to his players. He never said the words. Did he want to win? Oh, yes. But what he wanted was people to focus on their controllables, their effort, their energy, their attitude, their team spirit. And he used to wink at you, say, you do that enough and pretty great things are going to happen. So, Eamon, Just start focusing on what you put in, the joy you have when you help people. Pour more of that focus on giving the best of which you're capable each day. Let go of the comparison. And before you know it, great things will happen. But you won't be going for that. They'll just happen organically. And that's the way you want them to happen.
Well, thank you so much for answering that question, Brian. Amen. I hope that helped you. And of course, if you still need some more inspiration or help, I'll be linking Brian's information on the show notes of this episode and on YouTube. So, of course, any other content that he's created or books. But most importantly, I hope that we made you feel heard and valued, and I'm also encouraging you as well, because I know how it feels. I also, I think we all feel this way. I think we all tend sometimes to feel a little behind and wondering why we're not doing enough. And that feeling of I'm not doing enough, man, I've been feeling it a lot too. I think with so many options that there are out there with growing your business or growing yourself, it feels endless. There's endless opportunity out there, and that can feel either exciting or it could feel overwhelming, depending on how your perspective is of it. So I'm glad that we were able to take that moment to share that with you. So thank you so much. We really appreciate it. So to
Thank you,
move
Amy.
forward on this topic of servant leadership, kind of diving into something else that I really like that you've talked about. You have this concept of window of opportunity, or woo, which sounds really fun, like woo, window of opportunity. From my understanding, this kind of speaks to seizing the moments of potential and possibility in life and business. Can you explain to me what the woo really is? And
Yes.
let's get a little woo woo with it and talk about it maybe.
I love it. Well, woo seems like a very Disney-ish kind of a sound, doesn't it? So everybody who's watching this show right now, on three, say woo. 1, 2, 3, woo. It's really fun to say. So woo stands for window of opportunity. The woo is the window of opportunity. And I want to suggest that all of us share the most magical, vital, wonderful of all woos right now. And what it is every precious moment. And what I mean by that is every moment is a woo. You never know if the next person you'll meet today, if that person might become your lifelong friend, as you didn't know when you met your lifelong friends. You never know if the next time you talk to your son or your daughter, your teammate, your client, your prospect, if the next thing you say in the very next conversation may be so on target for something they just couldn't seem to see yet with their eyes, but you saw it, and then you seized the woo, carpe woo, right? And because of what you said, somebody's life turned and got better. You never know. So the question to everyone watching right now is not, is there a woo? There is. The question you got to ask yourself is, how many of those puppies have I missed? Right? And why did I miss them? And when you start to recognize that the window of opportunity is where we break through, we understand that that's where that energy piece comes in again. First reason why we miss some woos is we didn't have enough energy to be 4 feet ahead to be there. So start taking charge of your energy. And one other thing about the woo, sometimes the most powerful breakthrough moments are when we go through the toughest challenge. Within every adversity is planted the seed of an equivalent or greater benefit. Now that's from Think and Grow Rich, all right, a classic book. I'll say it again. Within every adversity is planted the seed of an equivalent or greater benefit. What does that mean? That means the toughest challenges you've ever made your way through, aren't they the very ones from which you grew the most? So when you have energy, you're more likely to seize that woo and look for that possibility. When you don't, man, you get knocked out cold by that adversity. So the window of opportunity is a great way to look at every precious moment. You know, in my own family, in the last couple of weeks, we've had some really difficult things happen. My brother-in-law passed away. He was much too young. And it was sudden. He was with us at Christmas. My 93-year-old father was rushed to the hospital. And what that made me really think of was that the window of opportunity is all we've got. We've got right now. That the past is history, the future a mystery, the gift is now. That's why we call it the present. And to make the most of every moment is the magic that every Disney film is about, and that really every life should be about. So it's a fun concept to really say, I'm going to seize more of those woos by putting myself in a place of greater energy and by being fully present.
I need to really highlight the importance of what you just said, because a lot of us, when we experience difficult times in life, they are inevitable, like you said, it's hard to show up with joy, to show up with purpose. It can be hard to put on that brave face and be a leader. And, you know, I find it really impactful. And honestly, I respect your ability to be able to show up in spite of life's trials, life's tribulations. But for someone like me, I tend to wear my heart on my sleeve a little bit, and I kind of have a hard time trying to still show up in spite of that. So what are some ways to cope, or tools that you would encourage someone who's going through a difficult time but still has to show up and be that leader and be present in spite of all of that? Like the adversity thing you said, there's actually a Mulan quote that I thought of: the flower that blooms in adversity is the rarest and most beautiful of them all. And that's something I thought of a lot. But like, how do we show up, how do we bloom, how do we really, in spite of being in like a thorny bush of life that we're experiencing?
I love it. Well, the starting place is to really grab a hold of that Mulan quote or the quote from Think and Grow Rich and take it into your heart, knowing that in that moment, this hurts. This isn't the way I wanted it to be, right? And then understand that something good is going to come of it. It always does. And believe that I'm going to learn something I never would have learned. Is this the way I would have chosen to learn it? Probably not. And that I learn it can change my life. So the first thing is to really embrace the concept that within adversity is planted that seed of equivalent or greater benefit. The second thing, and very important, is to stop blame in your life. Get rid of blame. Blame is the most destructive word in the language of teams, families, and lives. And here's why blame serves no purpose and why it's so important in those tough times. Think about blame in terms of in the context of time. Is blame about the past, the present, or the future? Always about the past. Whenever you're blamed, therefore, where are you? You're in the past. Can you do anything about the past? That's done. So when you find yourself in blame, you put yourself in a place where all you're going to do is be frustrated because you can't change anything. You can't move forward. So one of the best and most powerful things to do in the moments of where I want to blame somebody is to be a blame buster. And it doesn't mean you don't say things didn't go right, or that I made a mistake, or that I wish I hadn't have done it that way. But it instantly shifts it out of the past to the present, says, what can we learn? What are we going to do now? Because we've learned that. We're better because of it. So that's the second key, is to be a blame buster. It's really fun to say. You can raise your hand and say, I solemnly swear from this moment, I am a blame buster.
Blame buster.
There you go. And the third is kind of connected to that, is remember that the only place where we have a chance to be who we are to be is in the present. And that whenever, ever you're in that down place, it's because you're going back. All right. You must come to the present and say, what can I do? What else could this mean? When somebody comes to you and you feel like they're attacking you, ask yourself in your head, what else could this mean? And suddenly you go, well, maybe they're having a bad day. Maybe I didn't quite get it all. Maybe there's something else going on here that I don't know about. And it just softens you and gets you in a more powerful place. And lastly, again, always focus on controlling those controllables, that you can shift your energy in a positive place as simply as changing the way you move. In other words, if you look up and smile, like your eyes always have a twinkle and a smile in them, the instant you look up, you cannot be down. We're not wired electrically that way. So you can instantly change your movement, if you want to move your life, change the way you move. And those little things can get you back on a better track, so you can start to turn that downward spiral into an upward spiral.
I want to go back to something we talked about earlier in the conversation, which was the concept of, you know, same thing in Disney. You are the magic, or you are the hero of your own story. You know, those things can sound like really fluffy, feel good things like that you put on a, you know, TJ Maxx like decorative poster from in your bedroom or whatever. But in reality, like they are more impactful when you kind of dive down on in the business side of things, because a lot of times when we operate in business and we feel like things are happening to us, what happens is that we kind of lose that sense of, you know, mindfulness, that sense of control, that sense of vision. And, you know, I would love to hear, how does your ability to plan and your goal casting, your vision, like all of those things, how do you do that so that you stay on track with what you're doing as a speaker, writer, all of, you know, content creator, whatever, all the things that you're doing? Like, how do you set and cast and stay focused on that vision so that you can stay the hero of your own story?
I love it. The first is to recognize that I'm going to ask everyone in your audience right now a question. It seems like a silly question, but I want you to actually, wherever you are, answer out loud. And just for the fun of it, just pretend that we're all together in the same room. So I'm going to ask you, what color is a yield sign? Now, I've asked that. It sounds like a goofy question on this show. I've asked that question to thousands and thousands and thousands of people in tons of corporations around the world. All right. And they always answer overwhelmingly, at least 95% yellow. All right. Well, yield signs are red and white. They're upside down triangles with the word yield in red, with a red border and white between. And everybody goes, what? And I show it to them and they Google it and they go, son of a gun. See, we switched to the international signage standards 53 years ago, and every yield sign that everyone has seen for 53 years is not yellow, it's red and white. And so here's the question. We've seen thousands of yield signs. In the same way we see our jobs every day, we see our family every day, we see ourselves every day. So we've seen thousands of these and not seen one of them for what's right smack in front of us. Why? And the answer is, it reveals a truth that once you've got it, you can transform and you can move in that direction you just were talking about. And that is that almost everyone I know, you, me, my kids, everybody you know, rarely uses their vision to see. All right? What we use instead is our memory and our conditioning. And whenever you use your memory to see, you do not see what is, you see what was. And the second you lock on to what was, guess what you block out? What is and what could be. Now, that's well and good for yield signs, and I hope everybody will join me, because I'm the happiest driver I know, because every time I see a yield sign, I start cracking up. I'm thinking, what else have I been missing lately? Let me warn everybody, for the next month, every time you pass a yield sign, it's going to feel like it leaps out of the cement and whacks you on the head. But where does it matter to us in our lives the most to no longer depend on our memory to see? One word. The word that your show is about, the word that you are about, the word that all of us are ultimately about, and what every business is about. People. People. Change the way you look at people, the people you look at change. Change the way you see yourself, the self you see will change. A quick story to bring this alive and how it can relate. My oldest daughter's name is Kelsey. She's incredible. But I remember when we took her away to college. Oh my gosh, we missed her so much. When we dropped her off at school and I drove away, I sobbed for 3 hours. I am talking ugly crying. But you talk about seeing a yield sign for the first time. When Kelsey came home the very first time from college for Thanksgiving holiday, I finally had this massive breakthrough about vision. I finally realized how long I've been looking at my beautiful daughter, though I love her completely. I've been staring at her for years like she was an old yellow yield sign. I've been looking at her like she's my 10-year-old. Hey, she'd been driving her own car for 2.5 years. She walked in our door that Thanksgiving, a smile the size of the Carolinas. It's a Rita smile. I immediately announced to her mom and I that she'd already applied for, already been accepted to go to a very special service program in Ghana, in Africa. Because Kelsey, like you, wants to make the world better. And I looked at my Kelsey that day, maybe for the very first time. And I finally woke up and I finally realized that every time I looked at her as if she were an old yellow yield sign, what happened to our relationship? It went backwards until I looked at the wisdom, the courage, the powerful woman that was right in front of me. So one of my greatest goals and the way to deal with that vision is for everyone watching this show to rise up and become a world-class yield sign finder about the people that you lead and serve, about the people that you love, but most of all, about the person you look at in the mirror. Because when you change the way you look at people, the people you look at change. Change the way you look at yourself, the self you see will change. That's why I have people break boards. I want them to see that breakthrough part of them that they hoped was there, but they weren't sure, and have a real experience of it, so that from that point forward, when they meet with the uncertainty, they say, maybe I can, instead of all the reasons I can't.
That's so impactful, because something else about a yield sign is that it forces you to slow down. That it requires a moment to pause and go, wait a second, what even am I doing? Or how is that person? And I think with how busy business is, how fast paced everything can be, it can be hard to take that moment. But I think the magic moments don't happen unless you take that moment of pause and slowing down. Like, I read something the other day that says you can't be creative if you're stressed out. And it's so simple, but scientifically, you literally cannot be creative at all if you have any sense of stress. And why is that? It's because we're doing the opposite of finding the window opportunity for ourselves. We're just trying to do things that fulfill our ego. And I think if anyone can take anything from this conversation today, it's that you do have the opportunity, no matter where you're at in your business journey, to take that moment to slow down. And, maybe I'll add a different sign, maybe make a U-turn too.
That's
There's
right.
always a way back around.
That's beautiful. When we talked about being present, we talked about being present for others, and that's vital. But it's also vital to take some time every day to be present with yourself. That's the time to slow down and to focus, whether it's you're going out on a walk and just letting yourself percolate, whether it's just meditating, praying, whatever it is for you that works for you. For me, it's my morning walks. I go out on morning walks, and stuff just starts to percolate, that creativity, because I've let go of that stress in that moment. I'm just fully present. A great little metaphor for this. This is the swim coach part. So when I was a swimming coach, okay, there are two parts of an arm stroke in swimming. Underwater, when you're moving the water and pushing it behind you, that is called the resistance phase. The resistance phase, because you're dealing with the resistance of the water to move it back. The rushing, gushing, busy business part of our lives is the resistance phase. Most of us focus so much on the resistance phase, we forget that there's another part to every arm stroke. Once you release the water behind you, and you have to lift your arm up and pull it through to catch the water in front of you again. Do you know what that part of the arm stroke is called? It's called recovery. It's called recovery. And here's the simple truth. You can be incredibly powerful on that resistance phase. I'm rushing, I'm gushing, I'm making it happen. Yeah. But if you don't have an equally efficient, and the whole idea of recovery is, I'm a marionette puppet. There is no stress here whatsoever. If you don't have as equally a powerful resistance phase in terms of letting go, eventually that resistance is going to give up. You're going to wear out. You're going to burn out. So the moments when you take to be present with yourself, to let go, to slow down for a minute, that's the recovery phase of life. And that balance between recovery and resistance is how we make progress in our lives and still find that semblance of balance.
Do you know how many times I've been hearing this theme of let it go lately? And it's so important, but I
Would that
wonder
be a
where else
Disney
some of you
movie?
heard. Yeah, I wonder where that came from. No, but to be real, it's so valuable, because yeah, the recovery of just being able to take a second and go, okay, like what was the action that I did? How effective was it? How effective maybe was it not? Like, that period is so important. But above all, I really want to just emphasize that, like, it is a journey, and it's cyclical, and that, for me, I'm speaking this out loud because I feel like I've been feeling this, and maybe someone else needs to hear it too. But it's never going to be perfect, and that's okay. Like, as long as you keep trying and you keep showing up, that means eventually it will be. So if you're feeling like all of these things, you're writing down notes and you're trying to write down these concepts, and you're stressing like, man, I need to do this, I need to do that, I need to do this. Brian, what would you say is the one thing somebody should try and do if they're overwhelmed with all these different ideas? What's the one thing they should wake up and do tomorrow to set their life and their business up on the first step to success?
The very first thing you do when you wake up in the morning, each morning, is ask one question. And ask this simple, seemingly, not a huge question, it wouldn't seem, but it'll set your whole path of that day and of your life over time in the right trajectory. Ask yourself what you're truly grateful about in your life. What am I truly grateful about? The word has a secret in it, especially if you're not big on spelling. What you're grateful about has within it the capacity, when you focus on it, the power to make you grateful. What you're grateful about will focus you on your priorities. Your priorities are your pathway to purpose. And it's only when we are on purpose that we are actually at our very best, when we rise to our full potential. So there was a book that was called Power versus Force that measured the vibration, the frequency of emotions. The highest emotion, the most powerful frequency, is gratitude. So being grateful and starting your day on a path of gratitude sets you off on your highest vibration, your highest frequency, right? And then you start to look at how you can serve others. And whenever you seek to enrich another person's experience, you can't help but enrich your own. One other key that I thought of as you asked that question: what is your definition of success? Ask yourself, what's my definition of success? And for me, I realize that I share the same definition that John Wooden taught me. I was actually living it when I made that shift from the best to my best. And what he said is success, and this is where you let go of, oh my gosh, what if I'm not perfect? His definition of success said success is peace of mind. And it comes from only knowing one thing, from knowing that you've given the best of which you're capable. All right, so it doesn't matter what anybody else does. It doesn't matter about perfection, because I don't control any of that. All I can control is what I put in. So when you come from that definition of success, you move away from comparison. You move away from that unhealthy hunger for approval. You move away from controlling other people, and you realize that all I can control is what I put in. And if I do that each day, I come from a place of gratitude, I'm fully present, and I take charge of my own energy, man, I'm going to have a great journey. There will be bumps in the road, but those bumps are just fine because we learn from them as we move forward.
Well, I'm going to let that simmer for everyone. The bumps in the road are okay because you go through them and they let you learn and move forward. So they're just speed bumps. Like, it doesn't mean the road ended. It just boop. Okay, you go over it and then you keep going. I love that. I love that. We got a lot of sign analogies today. Maybe we need like a graphic with like, yield and U-turn and speed bump, but I'm kind of loving. I kind of love it.
In my seminars, I always bring my own music, and the first song I play is "Let It Go." So I thought you'd appreciate
that. Oh my goodness! See, it's so aligned there. Okay, so I would like to ask you a few. We're going to switch the vibe a little bit. It is Bippity Boppity Business. So I'm going to ask you a few Disney rapid fire kind of fun questions. Are you down for it?
I'll give it a go.
Come on, everybody. Here we go! Off to question land.
All right, Brian, you wake up, you're in a Disney universe. Okay, the fairy godmother comes up to you and she says, "We brought you here because this character needs your coaching and needs your help." What character do you think it is that you would end up being able to help the most? What universe is that? Who needs coaching that you feel like that the fairy godmother hired you for?
Okay, well, I love that, and I'm going to say, because all the characters I love, I guess I'm going to answer about one that I really would love to change. It's going to be Gaston from Belle. All right, because Gaston really needed to move from ego to ego. So that's the guy that I really would want to help create a breakthrough, to realize that you got to let go of this giant ego, man.
He needed your help, that's for sure. I love that. Okay, another question. Let's say that you are in just your day-to-day life. Okay, fairy godmother comes up to you in normal life and she says, "Hey, I got a gift for you. I'm going to give you a Disney sidekick. It can be any character. He's going to be your buddy. Who's going to be your sidekick? He'll come to you with shows, if it's speaking events, he'll be your little buddy. Who is it?"
Oh my goodness. Jiminy Cricket.
Oh, that's so good. Yes. Yes.
Because he's just kind of the perfect sidekick, he's got this little simple joy inside of him. And, I just felt like when you asked the question, I just went to my gut and I want Jiminy Cricket up there just to kind of say, I'm with you, buddy.
Let your conscience be your guide.
Let your conscience be your guide. That's right.
Oh my gosh. Okay. This is just more of a general one. I'm kind of a foodie. I love food. I've been to, I like all the snacks at the Disney parks. I feel like if you've been to the theme park at least once, there's been one snack that has stood out to you. If you could have that delivered to your door tomorrow, what Disney snack is your favorite, and what would it be?
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Well, I'm kind of an ice cream guy, so I'm just going to go
Yes.
with a Mickey, one of those Mickey ice cream bars. Can I
Yes,
tell you?
they're so
I think
good.
I
I
got
love
them on my mind because my 93-year-old dad, his favorite thing in the world are ice cream bars, but I don't think he's ever had a Mickey one. So,
Man, I wish I could poof one over right now. That would be awesome. But yeah, for me, it's churros. I'm obsessed, and Dole Whip too. Anyways, I'm not gonna get into that. That's a whole other thing. I'm way foodie. All right. Well, that wraps it up for our fun Disney rapid fire segment and just the entirety of this interview. For anyone watching today who wants to connect with you further, maybe just kind of dive more into your universe, Brian, what's the best way they can reach out and connect with you?
well, the simplest way is just go to my website. It's www.brianbiro.com. It's BIRO, and Brian with an I. And I love to hear from people. I love to. I guarantee I will reply to you if you reach out. And that's got my books and all the other stuff, and a lot about my speaking. And so that's the way. Just go to my website.
Well, it's been a pleasure. I hope as a listener, if you've gotten anything out of this, you feel more aligned, motivated, and ready to take your life into your own hands and be the hero of your own story. Brian, thank you so much for joining. And everyone, I hope you have a magical day.
Thank you.